Hi viewer, welcome again. Today, we'll discuss Microsoft Azure questions and answers. Now these days, most network development companies are looking for Microsoft Azure certified professionals. Only, the certificate is not a big achievement, and also experience in an interview is mandatory for beginners as well as semi-experienced professionals. Microsoft Azure interview questions. 1. What do you mean by Azure Cloud Service? Cloud Service could communicate many web apps in Azure, depicting several portions to disseminate control and allow flexible scaling up your application. Includes at least one web portion, as well as special portions, each with its explicit app docs and design. The basic acceptable role of cloud service is the capability to boost more complicated multi-level structures. 2. Do you have any idea about Azure Active Directory, AD? Azure AD is simply a cloud-based special IAM solution and directory developed by Microsoft. It gathers application accessing management, core directory services, and ID security into a single solution. 3. What are the advantages of Azure AD? It is used in apps for signs and signs out of employees. Azure AD is generally used for use by IT admins, app developers. It is further development of MS Office 365, SaaS applications or Dynamics CRM online applications. 4. What do you know about Azure DevOps? Azure DevOps is a SaaS platform that facilitates development services for making performance plans, performing together on code, formulating applications, and getting them deployed. It serves as a continual DevOps toolchain and can incorporate several famous tools in the market and is the best approach for building up a DevOps toolchain. 5. What is Azure Data Factory? Azure Data Factory is a cloud-based data integration service without a server. This platform is utilized to create ETL and ELT pipelines. It assists to make data-driven workflows for making the plan and execution of data shifting and transformation at a pre-decided scale. 6. What is Azure Databricks? Azure Databricks is a platform of data analytics that proposes dual environments for the development of data-intensive applications. 2. Azure Databricks Climate for app development. SQL Analytics on Azure Databricks. Azure Databricks Workspace. Azure Databricks gets integrated with the computation, security, analytics, storage, and AI services. These are mainly empowered by cloud providers to promote the consolidation of data and AI tasks. 7. Can you tell me some significant Azure resources? Any entity that is handled by Azure is known as an Azure resource. Some Azure resources are storage accounts, virtual machines, virtual networks, and many more. 1. 8. What is Azure Data Lake? Azure Data Lake is a cloud-based development platform that benefits big data analytics through its huge unlimited storage of data of all categories and sizes for structured, semi-structured, or unstructured types. 9. What are the significant features of Windows Azure? Usually, Windows Azure runs and gets the information stored on Microsoft data centers. By using Azure, websites allows the designers to assemble the sites through various applications like ASP.NET, PHP, etc., and publish these websites through FTP, Git, etc. SQL Database or Azure Database makes, expands, and scales the application into the cloud through Microsoft SQL Server. It benefits multi-level apps and automated deployment. 10. Differentiate a public cloud from a private cloud? Private clouds are designed solely for a private or individual business. They facilitate a firm to have cloud apps while growing concerns regarding data security and control that is repeatedly suffering in a public cloud area. A private cloud is also called an internal or enterprise cloud and performs on the intranet portal platform or hosted data center where the data is highly secured. 11. What are PaaS, IaaS, and SaaS? PaaS stands for Platform as a Service, which contains fundamental infrastructure abstraction that permits faster development of applications without the nuisance of hosting management. Some examples of PaaS are Azure Web Apps, storage services, cloud services, etc. IaaS stands for Infrastructure as a Service, which provides an array of capabilities like network connectivity and OS, etc., at the level of infrastructural infrastructure. Generally, it is utilized to host applications as per a policy of pay-per-use. For example, Azure VNet and VM infrastructure. SaaS is meant for Software as a Service app, which is provided through a service delivery model where apps are solely utilized by an organization. SaaS follows subscription-based payments or ads. Some important SaaS examples are Gmail, SharePoint Online, Office 365, etc. 12. Can we get a public IP address and DNS for the AILB, Azure Internal Load Balancer? No. AILA helps only private IP addresses. 13. Write the function of Azure Resource Manager. Azure Resource Manager delivers management service and application deployment. The Azure Management Layer assists to develop, amend, or delete resources in the subscription account in Azure. It is highly valuable while handling locks, access controls, and the security of resources. 14. What are the crucial roles in Windows Azure? Web role, it bestows a front-end web solution like an ASP.NET application along with IaaS and other required web services. Worker role, it provides background service solutions and can run lengthy activities. Virtual machine role, in the virtual machine, both the worker and web roles get executed. The virtual machine roles allow the client to alter the Azure virtual machine on which the worker and web roles are being executed. 15. Write about the three main segments of the Windows Azure platform. Windows Azure possesses the following three principal segments: Compute, Storage, and Fabric. A. Compute. Windows Azure provides a code that can be managed by the hosting environment. It allows the calculation utility through parts. Windows Azure supports three roles: web roles, worker roles, and virtual machine roles. B. Storage. It gives the following four types of storage services: tables for structural data storage, queues for acquainting between web roles and worker roles, binary large objects, blobs, to store records, contents, or various fast information. Windows Azure drives, WHD, to climb a page blob. This can be shifted and downloaded through blobs. C. AppFabric. Generally, AppFabric gives 5 services: Service Bus, Caching, Access, Composite, and Integration. 16. What is Windows Azure AppFabric? Windows Azure Diagnostics empowers you to gather diagnostic data from an application running in Windows Azure. Observed data is utilized for capability planning and assessment. 17. Differentiate Windows Azure queues from Windows Azure Service Bus queues. Azure queues provide solid, active messaging within the services. They also emphasize an interface having REST-based get/put/peek. Also, the bus queues are considered as part of a more comprehensive Windows Azure messaging framework that aids queuing. 18. Explain Windows Azure Table Storage. This table storage service performs storage of various organized data. Windows Azure tables are suitable for putting away organized, non-relevant data. In sum, a table is storage of entities, records. An entity has various properties, name-value pair, like a database row, and the size of the same will be up to 1 megabyte. Every entity can include up to 252 properties to get the data stored. Every entity possesses 3 system properties such as a row key, a segment key, and a timestamp. 19. Define Azure autoscaling. Scaling by containing extra instances repeatedly pertain to scaling out. Windows Azure provides scaling up throughout bigger roles instead of more role instances. An autoscaling solution decreases the quantity of manual work immersed in the dynamically scaling of the application. We can control the execution of the application by adding and deporting role instances to our running Windows Azure application. 20. Define NSG, Network Security Group. NSG stands for Network Security Group that carries a list of ACL rules which permit or restrict network traffic to subnets, NICs, network interface cards, connected to a subnet, or both. At the time of connection between an NSG and subnet, the ACL rules are implemented for all virtual machines which are placed in the same subnet. The traffic restrictions to a single NIC are obtained by connecting the NSG to that NIC. 21. Write about Windows Azure Traffic Manager. Azure Traffic Manager allows users to regulate the distribution of user traffic of the Azure cloud services that are installed. There are 3 unique load balancing policies provided by Azure. The manager who functions on traffic incorporates a routing policy to the DNS, domain name service. 22. Define Azure Redis Cache. Azure Redis Cache, an Azure-based in-memory cache system, assists web apps to improve performance. Azure Redis Cache allows powerful and protected caching mechanisms through the cloud. 23. Define Azure Storage Key. Azure Storage Key controls the accessibility to Azure Storage Service data as per the need of the project. Generally, 2 types of storage keys such as primary access key and secondary access key are utilized for authentication purpose and ultimately helps to reduce downtime of the website or specific apps. 24. Write about CSPack in Azure. CSPack command line tool creates the service pack file and keeps an app ready for deployment in Azure Compute Emulator. Each of the cloud service projects contains the .cscfg file, cloud service configuration file, created through CSPack. It stores the certificate thumbprints, the number of role instances for each deployment, and user-defined configurations. 25. Describe the federation in SQL Azure. Azure SQL is mainly popular for scalability, and federation allows both managers and developers to scale data. It assists managers by redistributing through repartitioning of data more simply. With federation, developers can route and share data. It assists in routing without the downtime of the application. 26. What is Azure SQL Database? Azure SQL Database is a cloud-associated storage service app. Microsoft Azure is one of the significant approaches to using PaaS where you can possess multiple databases on a single account. Unlike SQL Server, Microsoft Azure SQL has a similar components like high accessibility, security, and versatility in the core. Microsoft Azure SQL Database possesses a specific element, which conducts automatic backups of all active databases. 27. How many types of backups are available in Azure? Azure Backup includes 3 types of replications that keep both storage and data highly available. Geo-redundant storage, GRS. This GRS replicates the primary information to a secondary region. Locally redundant storage, LRS. This LRS creates 3 copies of the data in a data center-based storage scale unit. Zone redundant storage, ZRS. This ZRS replicates the available data with data resiliency and residency in the same region and with no downtime. 28. How can you contain a common file sharing system among different virtual machines? Azure File System is utilized as a widespread repository system for data sharing among virtual machines that are configured through protocols such as NFS, SMB, FTPS, etc. 29. What are the different types of storage locations in Windows Azure? Blobs provide a component to store a lot of information or binary data. For example, images, audio, video, and visual documents. They can scale up to 200 terabytes and can be obtained through REST APIs. Table, these data storage areas across machines store data with property on the cloud. Line, queue. The main target of a queue is to strengthen communication among instances of web and worker role. They assist in storing messages that may be obtained by a customer. 30. Why should you incorporate Azure CDN? Azure CDN decreases the load time and bandwidth. It also makes the responsiveness faster. 31. Describe the Azure TF, Team Foundation, build system. A TFS build system is considered the solution of output in an Azure project. In Azure, you will have a.CSPkg, Cloud Service Package, record utilized for the deployment of your cloud admin. Build servers, the deployment packages can be put in a build server machine. To better use Team Foundation build, you need to have a minimum of 1 build machine, and multiple machines, either physical or virtual machines, are inevitable. Build controllers, a balanced relationship will be grown between a team project and a build controller. Build agents, these components in the build system accomplishes additional processor-based function. 32. What is Azure App Service? Azure App Service is a handled PaaS, platform as a service, providing for competent developers that contain capabilities to the web, mobile, and combination scenarios. Mobile apps that are developed in Azure App Service provide a very adaptable, universally obtainable mobile app development platform for system integrators and enterprise developers that implies a rich set of capabilities to mobile engineers. 33. Differentiate between Azure Scale Sets and Availability Sets. Azure Scale Sets have special VMs, whereas the Availability Sets have no specific rule for the VMs. 34. What is profiling in Azure? Profiling is only an ideal method to measure the performance analysis of an app. Generally, it is performed to guarantee that the app is enough to steady and can maintain irresistible traffic. Once the profiling wizard is run in Visual Studio, it initiates the execution session and gathers the sample data. The profiling reports help in taking decisions on the longest running strategies inside the app, estimating the execution time of each of the strategies in the call stack, and calculating memory allocation. 35. What is cmdlet in Azure? A cmdlet refers to a lightweight command that is incorporated as a crucial part of the Microsoft PowerShell environment. The cmdlets are often called by the Windows PowerShell to make the command line scripts automated. Also, the Windows PowerShell runtime moreover invokes the cmdlets through Windows PowerShell APIs automatically. 36. What is Windows Azure Scheduler? Windows Azure Scheduler allows us to invoke various day-to-day activities, for example, calling HTTP/S endpoints or submitting a message on a storage queue on any decided schedule. With Azure Scheduler, you can accomplish jobs in the cloud that specifically call services both outside and inside of Windows Azure and perform those priority-based jobs. 37. How can you make an HDInsight cluster in Azure? To create an Azure HDInsight cluster, first, open the Azure portal, then click on New, choose Data Services, then click on HDInsight. 38. What do you know about Text Analytics API in Azure Machine? Content Analytics API is a most valuable part of content inspection web administrations functioned with Azure Machine Learning. The Analytic API can be incorporated to evaluate the informed content for tasks like sentiment analysis and key phrase generation. The Analytic API restores a proper numeric score between 0, negative, and 1, positive. 39. Write about the Migration Assistant tool in Azure-based websites. The Migration Assistant tool will test the IaaS installation and identify the sites that can be moved to the cloud, featuring any types of components which can't be migrated or are unsupervised on the platform. 40. How will the code get executed with the help of Azure without a server? Azure functions can execute code well without a server, and these services simplify complicated challenges and orchestration. They support connecting with other services without any integrations through hard coding, which makes the development procedure faster. I hope you must have got a brief idea about all possible Microsoft interview questions. Cloud-based applications get more benefits from Microsoft Azure applications.